Laoma Chris is famous for his Beijing accent, has taught thousands of language learners how to sound like a native, and he's my husband.
Hi.
But I'm told his pronunciation actually used to suck, and I'm so curious how bad it was and how he changed it. So today he's gonna share his step-by-step formula and the tools he used to transform his Mandarin pronunciation in just 2 months, and how you can do it too.
All right, so by the end of this video, you're gonna have a pretty deep understanding of how I went from 外国口音 to having a pretty fluent, nice sounding accent in about 2 months. But I'm gonna take you back very quickly to 2012, which is when I'd been studying Chinese for about 9 months. I was living in China, speaking Chinese every day, and I felt like my Chinese was really, really good. But there was a problem. By the way, in this video, we are gonna go through a lot of techniques, resources, tools. So if you wanna actually just get a PDF that I created with all of that stuff clearly laid out for you, check out the link below and we'll send it over to you. On the surface, it seemed like I could speak really good Chinese because I spoke fast and I was having some decent conversations. People were saying like, 哇，你中文说得好好啊. And because of that, I just thought, hey, I speak phenomenal Chinese, even though I'd only been learning for about 9 months. But what was actually happening was that oftentimes I would speak and get a little bit of a blank stare. They would not understand and I'd have to repeat myself. People could not understand me on the first try. Basically, I had what I call the fluent laowai accent, where I could say a lot, I could speak quickly, but the foundation was very shaky and oftentimes people just didn't know what I was saying. But Chinese people are so nice that nobody really pointed it out.
So why did you decide to focus on pronunciation? Did anything happen?
For me, the wake-up call came when one of my teachers, who also happens to be named Chris, took me aside one day because he knew that I wanted to speak phenomenal Chinese. He said, well, Chris, 其实你说得很溜，但是呢，你的发音乱七八糟的. Which sounds really harsh, but it was kind of what I needed to hear. So I buckled down, found a couple of people to help me, and these are the 4 steps that I went through to completely transform my pronunciation in 2 months.
Then what did you do exactly? Did you follow a specific order or system?
Step 1 was completely rebuilding my understanding of tones and what we call phonemes, which is all the consonants and vowels of the language. And if your teacher tells you,
don't worry about pronunciation or tones because you'll figure it out eventually,
they're a bad teacher and you should probably get a new one, at least for learning pronunciation. Tones are 100% the foundation for everything that will make you sound good or bad. If you want to speak Chinese well, if you want to get to an advanced level and you ignore tones, it's not going to happen. This is not up for discussion. I don't accept other opinions. You need to learn tones. I went back and all 4 tones, humming them with different sounds, just wo. Practicing those every single day, and I made sure to go and find what was actually right for me because I have a slightly deeper voice, and if your teacher is a woman and has a slightly higher voice, then maybe imitating her tones is not gonna get you the desired result. Vice versa, if you are a woman learning Chinese and your teacher is a male with a very deep voice, then it is going to be a weird thing to try to imitate. Every single day, drilling, imitating, and really focusing on those hard ones. One of the big things that a lot of people struggle with is the third tone because it's just taught incorrectly. This part right here, this is the third tone. It's taught as a dipping rising tone, but that makes it so most people just kind of pronounce it going up really starkly. But in actuality, in real life speech, it's more like a thing just down here. So when you say words like above, about, that sound is kind of like the third tone in Chinese. So if you can have that little mindset shift, you'll actually realize that the third tone is not as hard as you were expecting. By the way, if you're curious, those pitch contours were created with this program called Audacity. It's a free audio software that I think is phenomenal. It's really cool because you can upload a recording that you're trying to copy, then you can record yourself, and you can visually see how your pronunciation is different from the target one. And even if you haven't, say, trained your ear yet, you have that visual guideline that helps you correct your speech. This, for me, was one of the best tools that helped me self-correct and build that understanding, help my ear be able to differentiate between different tones. Once you kind of figure out what each of the tones sounds like, you do it in isolation by themselves, then you start putting them together. And honestly, I was just kind of humming a lot of things, just the basic 1, 2, 3, 4. So step 2 was the actual sounds, what we call the initials and finals of Chinese. And personally, I'm a huge believer in the 80-20 rule, so I was always searching for what the highest ROI fixes would be. So that would be, for most people, like the sounds that don't exist in your own language. And when you're talking about pronunciation, actually the 4 things that you want to be paying attention to are your tongue position, mouth shape, lip shape, and how much you open your mouth. So this is something that I use when I'm teaching people English. It's just like every sound is pronounced from a different part of your mouth. And what I tell most people when they're trying to figure out pronunciation is, of those 4 things that I just listed, mastering your tongue is the most critical thing that you need to do. So here with the ji, qi, xi, the tip of your tongue is going to be down here. It's going to be behind your bottom teeth. When you make sounds like ja, cha, sha, which, in English, jeep, ship, cheese, those are kind of up here. So having to adjust to the tip of your tongue down here takes a little bit of time, but once you know that that's what you need to do, it's not that hard. Yes, you need to practice. Yes, you need to have tons of output and hours, but once it becomes muscle memory, you're not going to get it wrong anymore. The problem is that if your teacher doesn't tell you that this is where your tongue is, this is what it's doing, then you will essentially never figure it out. Another quick win if you're a native English speaker or Spanish speaker is the U sound, because this one, a lot of people think, oh, it's so hard, it doesn't exist in my language, even though if you speak French or German or Uzbek, you already can do this, but it's very simple to do. All you have to do is start with the E sound, which everybody can do, and then slowly, don't move anything except your lips. Push them forward, and now you can make the U sound. And all these things, from the individual sounds to the phrases, the sentences, and even like the intonation of the language itself, is stuff that can be hard to put together because a lot of textbooks don't cover this. But if you're looking for a system in which everything is already done for you, where all you have to do is come in and do all the work, and you will get good pronunciation, sound more like a native, and have great conversations, then that's exactly what Rita's done in her boot camp. It's starting on January 5th, and she has the step-by-step system that tells you exactly what to do, has daily tasks with one-on-one corrections, exactly talking about your mistakes and how to fix them. In her weekly live streams, she goes over the issues that everybody has, but also gives you more opportunities to practice and get one-on-one feedback. Plus, you have community support and a bunch of other resources to help you get to more native sounding Chinese pronunciation in just 84 days. And right now she's doing something that she's never done. If you sign up by December 2nd, you'll get a one-on-one pronunciation audit. So even before the bootcamp starts, you know exactly where your mistakes lie. And if you finish the entire bootcamp, you'll get a full refund of the bootcamp tuition, which means that you will have learned amazing pronunciation for free. Check out the link below to sign up today. Once you kind of have the tones down, you go into practicing the individual sounds. So with the tough ones like ji, qi, xi, I would just grab a mirror or a phone. Like, you can just have this right here, flip on your camera, and be looking at how you pronounce these sounds. Ji, ji, qi, xi. That way you can kind of check yourself to see if your tongue is in the right place. So you go from individual sounds to words and then to sentences, and preferably the whole time you're choosing things that are very high frequency. It's the whole 80-20 principle. You want to practice with the words that you're going to be using the most. So I would be saying 今天天气很好. Same thing, look at yourself in the phone and just 今天天气很好. 今天天气很好. It's the whole Bruce Lee quote of, I don't fear the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. You do this over and over, build that muscle memory, and you will get good. And in addition to studying words, phrases, and sentences, another thing that became a very important part of my repertoire was tongue twisters. 800标兵奔北坡，炮兵并排北边跑. Most people see tongue twisters as this kind of like fun little game, but actually they're phenomenal for practicing difficult sounds. So the simple steps that you would go through are, one, just figuring out what are the actual sounds that you're struggling with, to find a tongue twister that corresponds to that. 吕小绿家养了红鲤鱼，绿鲤鱼和驴。李小丽家养了红驴、绿驴和鲤鱼。吕小绿说他家的绿鲤鱼比李小丽家的绿鲤鱼绿。And just like going to the gym, if you're working out at the gym and doing squat or bench, deadlift, you want to make sure that your form is really on point. And it's the same exact thing with pronunciation. If your form isn't correct, then you're gonna sound a little bit off. And if it's off enough, then the other person isn't gonna understand what you're saying. Ultimately, the goal here is gonna be muscle memory. It's to speak slowly and clearly and build good habits, and then you can slowly build up that speed. So when you get excited, your pronunciation doesn't just go off the rails. But anyway, doing all of this practice was pretty effective, even though it was very surprising to me at the very beginning when I told a lot of my teachers what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to zero, start over, fix my pronunciation. Most of them were just not very supportive. They just said, it's too late. You're 23, you've been speaking Chinese for quite some time now, so you might as well just go learn more vocabulary, which is insanity. At the same time, I also did run into several other problems. One, because this isn't a super common undertaking, there wasn't really any roadmap. There wasn't anything that told me how I should be doing this. And because there's this weird disconnect between teaching Chinese as a foreign language and teaching Chinese pronunciation to people who want to be broadcasters. And then there's academia. Like it was so hard to find things and research everything. I had to do all of that. And not only figuring out how to learn this, but also I had to go and DIY all of my materials, just finding audio samples, things that I wanted to go and try to mimic and imitate and use as my source materials to try to improve my pronunciation, finding those tongue twisters, the TV clips, everything, and putting them into Audacity, that tool that I was talking about. Making MP3 files was such a waste of time, not because it didn't work, but because I had to find all of it, and that's very frustrating. Also, a lot of teachers honestly just gave me really vague feedback because going and trying to fix pronunciation like this isn't a really common thing. So most teachers, when I pronounce something, they would just say like, oh, that sounds better or worse, it's closer or further away, it's right or wrong. But they wouldn't be able to tell me that, you know, if you put the tip of your tongue behind your bottom teeth and then kind of arch up a little bit, you're gonna be able to make that ji, qi, xi sound. If you have an E and then your lips go forward, you all of a sudden have that U sound. So you put those two together and ju, chu, shu, you suddenly mastered it. All you have to do is know how your tongue goes, what your lips do, how much you open your mouth, and you're good to go.
And next question, what's the #1 thing everyone should be doing to improve their pronunciation?
All of the things that I was doing did actually get me closer to the goal. I do have to say, at the very beginning, you kind of are rebuilding everything. So for a while, a lot of the teachers were just like, Chris, you sound worse than you did before. You're getting worse at Chinese because you're rebuilding. And sometimes you do need to tear everything down to build it back up stronger, better, and that is what I did. That being said, there were 3 things that I did every single day that I think were the ones that really solidified everything and kind of made everything click. 1, shadowing. If you watch a lot of things related to learning languages, you may have already stumbled upon this, but shadowing is basically repeating something as you're listening to it. So while more traditional listening and repeating is where you play an audio file and then when it ends, you go and repeat. Shadowing is a little bit more in sync, where you try to have the lag between when you hear something and when you start saying it be as close to 0 as possible.
不能说没有意识，能意识得到，但是我其实不特别清楚它意味着什么。你想我去中央戏剧学院，很偶然，因为我不爱看那个时候的电影，都特别假，
And that can be very challenging, especially if you're listening to audio from native speakers where they're speaking quickly. So one of the things that you're gonna wanna do, guaranteed, is slow things down. In any piece of software, you're gonna be able to go in and adjust the speed settings, so you could lower it to 80, and I would generally say click on something like maintain audio pitch. This is my video editing software, obviously, but in Audacity as well, they have a feature where you can decrease the speed, but it actually maintains the pitch. Because sometimes when you slow things down, everything gets really weird, and like that's actually very difficult to try to imitate. Number 2 is you're going to want to record yourself and compare to a native audio file. And like I said, you can just do this in Audacity because you can see visually when you get louder or quieter, when it's longer or shorter. And you can even add in those pitch contours that let you see if your tone is correct, which is obviously one of the big things for anyone that's trying to learn Chinese. Number 3, and I think this is one of the most important ones, is finding a language idol. A language idol basically is someone that you like the sound of their voice. Maybe ideally it's someone who sounds a little bit similar to you. I have a lower pitched voice compared to most Chinese teachers, where probably 70–80% are women. They have a higher pitched voice, and that's not necessarily the type of sound that you want to be imitating. I really liked Jiang Wen, who is a director, and I found a bunch of just interviews and all these video clips, and I would sit there and listen. I would do all these 3 things all together, listening to Jiang Wen, recording myself, comparing myself to his speech, shadowing when he's just answering a question. I would try to answer it in exactly the same way, with the same cadence, the same pauses, the same speed. And sometimes he speaks a little bit too fast. Like I said, you can just slow it down. I highly recommend you do that because you don't want to get into the habit of just always trying to speak really, really quickly, because then you will not speak clearly. Another thing that's really important that I could go into detail for hours and hours, but Rita's talked about quite a bit in her videos, is the intonation of the language and how people actually simplify it and speak lazy Chinese as native speakers. So just the same way that in English we would say, "What are you doing?" not "What are you doing?" In Chinese, you have a lot of these reductions and simplifications and connected speech. And if you know how it works, 1, your listening will get way better, but 2, you'll also sound way more native. That's something that you definitely need to pay attention to when you're doing this shadowing, recording, comparisons, all of that. And Rita goes into full detail about all that in her courses as well. By the way, this should also kind of go without saying, but watching any show, TV shows, movies, reality shows that you enjoy is a phenomenal way to be able to stick with something. You have so much material to shadow, to imitate, you can clip things. And back when I was learning, I feel like these resources were woefully lacking, but I watched a lot of 非诚勿扰, which is a dating show. Not the greatest, but a lot of young people speaking Chinese. Now you have so many options, and Rita talks about quite a few in her videos, that there are great shows for anybody to learn Chinese. I've helped people through this process with learning English, Chinese, and other languages because all of the principles are the same no matter what language it is that you're learning. And I actually think it's much easier now than back when I was doing it in 2012 because you have so many other tools, you have better resources. And if you want to actually take all the guesswork out of all of that, you can just go check out Rita's pronunciation bootcamp that's going to be starting on January 5th, where she gives you all the exercises, one-on-one feedback, corrections, weekly live streams, everything that you need to make sure that you can transform your pronunciation in just 84 days. And if you found this useful, you're definitely gonna wanna go check out this video where Rita breaks down the intonation of Chinese as done by rappers.